Okay, now we're going to move on to our solid waste services update to City Council. Mr. Blackburn?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, members of the public who are here. Council is well aware, and our citizens are well aware that there have been a number of failings from our solid waste provider over the last really 2 years. We, for a point back in May, we were having as many as 400 1PSL calls being provided to the city a day. Thankfully, those are beginning to moderate. They're moderating because we as a city have taken a lot of efforts to try to supplement services and provide for those more egregious misses, long-term misses of pickups for our citizens. So tonight I'm pleased to inform the council, and on your agenda will be the formal approval that we are actually renting 9 garbage trucks for the city. We will be using these trucks to address those misses that are a minimum of 7 days, but we're really starting with the ones that are 10 and 12 days, where citizens call in, notify us through 1PSL that they have not had a pickup in a long period of time, which we would all as public servants say that's too long. And so we send our trucks out. They not only pick up the home that was identified, but they pick up the block, and where the areas are manageable, meaning 100 or 200 houses, we'll pick up the whole area. And so we've been doing this now for about 2 weeks. We started with 2 trucks. We saw that demand was greater. We brought on 2 more trucks last week, and this week we'll be bringing on 5 more trucks by the end of the week. And so our Public Works employees are serving as the drivers, and we're getting either contractual labor or Public Works labor or Parks and Rec labor as to be the helpers on the trucks, and that's the most important job actually, and that's picking up your trash and emptying it into the truck. So you'll see these white trucks around with a city seal on them. Say more by the end of the week, and it is our way of supplementing the services provided by Waste Pro to ensure that anybody whose route was missed for a period of time, 7 days or more, we're going to do everything we can to be out there to make sure people have a good quality and level of service. So in addition to renting these 9 trucks, we continue to contract with Optimum Services for yard waste, for large piles, not a single palm frond, but a larger pile, and FCC Environmental. Each are taking a portion of the city and running yard waste piles. Now, in addition to that, Waste Pro does have at least 4 contractors that I've seen on most days picking up yard waste piles. So it's been a hard journey for the city council, for your staff, for our citizens primarily, to ensure that we have good services. The council is aware, and I believe our community is aware. We have selected a new provider starting in September, and that provider is on track. They have started delivering their commercial containers. They're actually on site at our Cameo yard. They have shown us their purchase orders for buying their trucks. Their trucks are ordered. They are having a job fair this week that we're co-sponsoring for their employees. So they're moving toward getting up and running early September. And so it's, I think, for all of our residents who have been going through a period of poor service, for the most part, we thank them for their patience, knowing that everybody should expect to receive the service on the day that you're scheduled. That's not been happening. We can't honestly tell you between now and September that we're going to get back to that, But we can tell you, you're going to get service because we're supplementing a number of different ways to ensure that we get service of the major components of our contract. So another thing that, I want to compliment our legal department on, and that's they're engaged in litigation with Waste Pro. And I think at your last meeting, Mr. Stokes mentioned that we wanted folks who have had trash on their curb for a long period of time and who wanted to be part of that litigation to be able to speak up and use their photos, use their name, and perhaps call on them as a witness. And we had a lot of folks volunteer, say, I'm here. Let me step up and I'll show you the photos of my yard and what's been going on. So we want to thank all of our citizens who have stepped up and volunteered to do that. So our solid waste issues are not resolved. They won't be resolved for a while, but we're making a lot of progress. Waste Pro is continuing to work. The city is definitely supplementing those services, and we're determined to get through till September till the new vendor starts.
Thank you. Comments? Councilman Bono?
So, Madam Mayor, the manager just went over a series of items that the city is doing to supplement Waste Pro's services. And these are all great items. But the important thing that our residents need to know is that these supplemental services are less efficient than they would be if we had proper communication from Waste Pro. Waste Pro is not giving us information about how many trucks they have out. They're not giving us any information about the routes and where they're going. So we are forced to be reactive rather than proactive. And, I just wish that Waste Pro would be communicative with the city like they are required to do. But instead we get games. And I just want you to know a little bit about what we're dealing with. You may remember from the last city council meeting, I had talked about the temporary pause in recycling and how Waste Pro said that they would take the drivers from the recycling trucks and put them on garbage trucks, and how the numbers didn't add up because we didn't see any market improvement. The very next day, staff sent an email because Waste Pro had been giving a number of trucks, and the very next day, we didn't get that email. And so staff said, where's this email? And there was an email that I posted on social media on Breaking News that said essentially, well, we provided that as a courtesy while we were catching up, but now that we're all caught up or providing service at normal levels, we're not going to provide that information anymore. And, based on the response, well, actually that day I had trash that had been uncollected in my own yard for some time that was well overdue, so I knew that they weren't all caught up. And based on the reaction from our residents and the number of emails we got to the Waste Pro lawsuit email, they were not all caught up. They weren't providing the number of trucks because that data was allowing us to tell the real story of what was going on. The manager had a meeting scheduled with the regional vice president. Not sure if that's the exact title, but he's the head of the region, scheduled for Monday morning. We wanted to discuss potentially matching productivity bonuses. Waste Pro says that we can't retain our employees. And so we wanted to see what the city was able to do to match whatever productivity bonus Waste Pro was going to give. Mr. Mackey skipped the meeting. He didn't give any notice he wasn't going to have the meeting. And to my knowledge, and he may have responded since, the manager can correct me afterwards, but quite some time afterwards, he provided no explanation as to why he skipped out on the meeting. And so I go into this not to kind of go and dwell in the past. We did the RFP. We have a new vendor coming in September. We are doing these supplemental services. But I just want the residents to know exactly what we're dealing with. and why the supplemental services we're providing aren't as efficient as they could be if we just had that communication from Waste Pro. Thank you.
Anyone else to make a comment? Sure.
Thank you for the update, Russ. I want to try to shift the focus just slightly to talk about the future, because many comments come forward in the future in regards to, because of people's experience with the current provider, their expectation level is not very high for the incoming provider, unfortunately, because of their current experience. So you mentioned that FCC has provided you purchase orders and such. So many people may not know that FCC has a timeline that has been agreed upon by the city and them. Will you share with the public how are they meeting that timeline? Are they meeting all our expectations? Are they going above and beyond our expectations?
So, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. FCC, in their proposal, was to provide a transition plan, and every month has benchmarks that must be achieved prior to standing up their new service in September. So each of the months, of course, we're in June, they have met or exceed what they're supposed to be doing. They're, at this point, because there was a long lead time on the commercial containers, and it takes a while to swap them out between Waste Pro's containers and FCC's, they're supposed to start in June getting the new containers. We allowed them to store them at the Cameo site, and they're starting, I believe, either this week or next week in swapping the containers out. Basically, the commercial container that's new from FCC will be brought to the commercial businesses site. They'll take out the Waste Pro container. Waste Pro will continue to serve that business in that FCC container until September, when there's the transition. That's just an example of the kind of coordination that it takes to bring a whole new provider in. They're doing it on time. I believe we have 140 containers already on the Cameo site, and they'll be switched out, in phases over the next couple of months. They're starting their recruitment. As I noted, there's a jobs fair that they've actually been posting for a while, but engaging the city to help them at least reach folks as they begin to fill their positions. And they've stated they feel confident that their trucks will be in and that they'll be ready to go in September. So my impression is that they're doing everything they should be doing. Dave Peters, who we're working with, has relayed to me he feels very good. Mike Lubeck, Carmen Capizzuto, all the folks working with the FCC are very pleased.
So, because you mentioned the new containers and you also mentioned businesses and that transition that's going to occur with businesses, when can businesses anticipate hearing from the new provider and how that transition will take place and how it's going to affect them? Do we have a timetable on that yet?
It's in, I can't tell you the exact date, but it's in the transition plan, and they're following it. The businesses are being notified now of the swap out of the containers. So there's already some level of communication ongoing. Let's say Waste Pro will continue to service those containers. It's just you'll have a different logo on the outside of the container until September, when FCC will take over servicing.
And then the timeline for the public as far as future communication, when can they anticipate understanding when their pickup day is going to be, when they can anticipate the level of service to be changed according to the contract, et cetera?
So Madam Mayor, we're finalizing the routes when will pickup occur, so that every homeowner that receives service from the city will get notified what route they're on and what will be their day of service. One of the things that my understanding is FCC is leaning toward, which I believe will be a positive, is that they'll be picking up recycling and garbage on the same day. You'll have two containers. You have your 64-gallon, in most cases, recycling container, and your 96-gallon, unless you've chosen a smaller container, for your garbage. So they'll both be picked up on the same day. So you won't get confused. Did I put my can out? Should I put it out today? Both go out on the same day. And if you think about the volume, you know, it's 160 gallons of either recycling or garbage all in one day. And it really, I think, will make life easier for folks, because not only do you have the capacity, but you don't have to have, as we currently have, trash one day, recycling another. So I think that will be positive.
Streamlines it.
It does streamline it. So that notification will go out in August as to what are your days of pickup, so everybody should know that. Also in August, folks will be receiving their 96-gallon, or if they chose a smaller container, their containers. So it's very well thought out. From a system perspective, everything is on time and on schedule. And you know, we ordered back in April the garbage cans or totes. Those are supposed to be delivered in August. You'll get your service day as well, and in August, all to be ready for September service.
I appreciate that update. Thank you. And it's not trying to minimize the challenges that we're having with Waste Pro, but you know, I want to see us try to also have your updates include a lot of the meat being where we're going in the future. I think the public is fully aware of the challenges we're having, fully aware of Waste Pro's shortfalls. And so I just want to continue to provide them the forecast coming forward that this is going to get better, and we're going to resume regular service in the near future. And the city is going to move forward and hopefully with a really good partner that's going to work with us with this particular issue as they have so far and be a great service provider to the community. So thank you very much.
Councilman Pickett.
I want to address something about the 9 trucks or 12 trucks or whatever it is we have or having. I want to make something very clear.
9, Councilman.
9. I want to make something very clear to the public. That's 9 trucks that we're paying for. That's 9 trucks that's coming out of our bottom line. That's 9 city employees that we have to put on those trucks. So at a minimum, 9 trucks to drive, 9 people to drive those trucks. Now that's 9 people we're taking away from their regularly scheduled job in public works. So that means storm sewers are not going to get cleaned out. Other jobs that the city would regularly do are not going to get done because we're supplying garbage. My biggest fear is we're going to put these trucks on the road. And it's a necessary evil, I get it. But my biggest fear is we put these trucks on the road, we staff them with city people, and Waste Pro lays down even more trucks. They back off even more trucks. That's my biggest fear. There's nothing we can do to prevent it, but that's what I foresee happening. And I want to address something the other day. I received something by text. It's propaganda, exactly what it was, propaganda. It's just like the propaganda that I used to see when I was in Korea on the DMZ from North Koreans throwing leaflets across the DMZ. Waste Pro said they're committed to Port St. Lucie, whatever, I forget the exact thing, but where was that commitment 6 months ago? Where was that commitment 6 months ago? Why did we say that commitment? Why didn't Russ Mackey bring people from out of state to come here and pick up our garbage when he could have did it 6 months ago? Thank you.
So everyone's points are very well taken. Based on the nature of what we've seen, especially the retaliatory nature, I do share some of the concerns that you have with regard to our supplementing the service. However, it's what we needed to do in order to make sure that we are addressing the concerns and to make sure that we're doing everything that we can as a city to get the garbage collected. And so it's unfortunate that it keeps coming to the fact that every single time this council wants to be 100% open and honest with our citizens about what has been transpiring, we get retaliatory antics pretty much the next day, which is from not telling us how many trucks are on the road or not giving us numbers. I mean, we ran the gamut on it. We don't need to go back over it. But I do want to thank everyone for their continued patience. I know everyone is without patience at this point. We are all so sick and tired of this as much as every other resident is. And I think we all are very much looking forward to September when we get back to normalcy, consistent service. I want to thank Dave Peters. I know that, and all of our team, NSD team, and everyone involved who've been working so hard, trying to find trucks, and Mr. Blackburn, your team, trying to marry the workers necessary to do the job. Our public works crews, who was stated they're doing not their normal duties. So I want to thank them as well. St. Lucie West Services District, it should be mentioned, they're helping us clean up the yard debris in some of the gated communities. So I was out there last week, or the week before last, and thank them for what they're doing to assist us as well. And our citizens for helping us out with the lawsuit and providing evidence. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Stokes, you've received like hundreds of emails so far from citizens helping us out, which is crucial as we move forward, because we're doing this on behalf of our citizens in the hopes that we can collect what's owed to us and our citizens and then be able to give that back. So is that correct, Mr.
Yes,
Stokes?
yes, we've gotten quite literally hundreds and hundreds of emails, some more helpful than others. We've reached out to all of those that gave a phone number. Some didn't provide any information; those were difficult. But we had quite a few citizens willing to help, and it's been very helpful.
Thank you. But, like I said, and we all said, we got to move forward. We are moving forward together. So those continued updates about FCC is vitally important when we can share information with our residents, more information about dates of when things are going to start, when the carts are actually coming, when those pickup days are going to be for everyone. Like I said, the more we get back to that normalcy, the better off we're all going to be. And so I know we're all looking forward to that. So thank you again. Yes, you have something else?
I just want to say I'd raised a couple concerns about communication with council and the community. And I just want to thank the communications department and staff. The daily updates have been helpful. We've been right out in front with things like the discussion about the credit and the lawsuit and those kind of things. And so first class job and thank you very much.
Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to clarify with the city attorney, being that you said that some information was more helpful than others, is there anything that you would like to tell the public in regards to what's important, like name, phone number, like what should they provide to be able to give you a good point of reference or contact?
Absolutely. What we're looking for here, because one PSL still exists and is still necessary. And if a resident is just wanting to report, a missed pickup, that information we need through one PSL. If a resident wants remedial service, wants to have somebody come out to their house, that needs to be done through one PSL. What we're looking for through the email address that we have, wasteprolawsuit@cityofpsl.com, we're looking for people that are willing to step up and actually be witnesses in this case. People, because we cannot be in front of somebody's home every day, but our residents live there, and they're the ones that can say, no, it wasn't just 2 days. It was 10 days. It was 12 days. It was 14 days. And be willing to either put that in an affidavit or show up in court when this goes to trial and testify to that effect. So I would like to still encourage residents that have that kind of information and that willingness to step up and participate to reach out. If they could provide an email, a phone number, it'd be the easiest way for one of our attorneys to get in touch with them. But if not, they'll get a reply email and be asked for more information. At that point, no one's being forced to do anything. If they give information, they talk to our attorneys, and they decide they don't want to get involved, we understand that too, because the legal process is scary. So that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on now to public to be heard. This is your opportunity to speak to the council for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda related items. And at the end of public to be heard, the council can respond if they so choose. And the first person I've signed up to speak is Mr. Carroll. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Go ahead, Mr. Carroll. I did have someone to speak up on the solid waste. We'll go back to
Well,
that.
that's all right, I wait.
You sure? Okay. I'm sorry. Mr. Greifel? This is on solid waste. I apologize, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Stu Griffel, 21912 Southwest Tavolo Way. Mayor and city council members, I came before you at the city council meeting 2 weeks ago and asked some questions regarding the waste hauling problem, focusing mainly on what was going to happen when we have a new contractor. I sent 7 questions to the city manager and received a response on Friday, 6/24. Didn't have much time from when I received it and tonight's meeting to analyze the answers in detail. What I briefly noted was that two questions were answered completely, and they were, where can residents get copies of the RFP, bids, and contracts with FCC? And I also got an answer, a complete answer on if the contractor didn't perform during a specific year, can we forego the CPI increase? The answer was no, and it doesn't seem like the city can do anything about paying that adjustment, that annual adjustment. I also noted that, in my opinion, 5 other questions I asked were either answered insufficiently, without specificity, and/or incompletely. These questions were, why didn't the city terminate the contract with Waste Pro as the problems with them became increasingly worse instead of waiting for Waste Pro to terminate it with us? Second, why didn't the city negotiate? And again, these are ones that I felt that I didn't get sufficient information or incomplete. Why didn't the city negotiate a contract for less than 7 years with FCC? I understand that FCC has to recoup their millions of dollars in equipment costs, but the financial information provided by FCC specify what those millions of dollars were for and were they reasonable and justified. Also, what happens if FCC costs go down substantially over the next couple of years? Costs are very high now, but what about 3 years from now? So that 7 years does lock us in. Another question is, what additional processes, controls, and contract oversight is the city going to put in place to ensure that it continually receives the best possible service from FCC? The answer I got to that had to do with hiring a new solid waste division director and not with the new processes and controls which I asked about. In response, I was looking for a list of additional processes and controls. I have a few follow-up questions regarding a future appointment of a solid waste division director oversee the FCC agreement. I don't have those questions formulated as yet. Another question would, what does a contract with FCC include, does the contract with FCC include output efficiency and effectiveness quality measures with related targets or results? That was the question. If yes, what metrics are in the contract? The answer said 43 measures, but didn't answer if they include only output, but if do they also include efficiency and effectiveness? And also, do the measures have targets, such as percentage of or number of? For example, 98% of all pickups are completed on schedule.
Sir, can you please conclude your comments?
Yes. In addition to performance metrics, I asked if the metric results will be made available to the public. According to response, it stated that the contractor is required to provide an annual report that includes the status of all aspects of the performance for the prior year. Would that include the results for the 43 metrics, and will they be reported to the public annually? So now, based on what you had said at the last meeting, I have a question. Did the city manager's office send the mayor or the city council a copy of the answers to the questions that I received?
Thank you, sir. I didn't get that information. Usually
Was
it
provided
goes,
just to you.
usually it goes to you.
Okay.
The requester, typically we don't get copied on that unless one of us or all of us request that. But if you have further questions, we'll make sure that they get answered.
Okay.
And
Some follow-up questions that also.
And Mr. Blackburn, perhaps that you can have someone actually speak to in person.
Well, first, that's a great idea. Mrs. Griffel also was informed we have 46 different measures in the request for
Right.
proposal that the proposers responded to. when they provide their annual report. That will be a public document available to you and anyone who wants to see how they're doing on those measures.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Blackburn.
Definitely a public document.
Thank you, Mayor.
And we'll follow up with, I know you received your response from Mr. Capizzuto, and if you would like to sit down with him and our staff, we're welcome to do that as well. And so we'll set that up with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now we'll go on to public to be heard.